recording of this training will be available after the training. And our next training will be at noon, October 20th, and that is with our ACE national organizer that we have just brought on staff this year. And he's going to be talking, Gustavo, he's going to be talking about organizing and messaging in a quarantine. So it's really, this is really important. It goes hand in hand with this strategic planning. So tune in on October 20th, is 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And he has a really good program lined up. And so if you need something related to this training, please, let us know in chat if you're on Zoom and something is not right or whatever, or you can email CHEJ2, again, it's the number 2 at CHEJ. And if you're on the phone or elsewhere and you haven't gotten a copy of the PDF of the training slides, please just let us know through CHEJ2 at CHEJ.org. So that is all of the housekeeping that we need to do. So let me start by talking about strategic planning. It is by far the absolute most important thing for both your organizations and your campaign. Without a plan, you are essentially reacting to today's or yesterday's circumstances. You are reacting, you're not proactive. Your group and campaign will quickly fall off the tracks, as I call it, in doing activities that are not helpful to you, not helpful for you to win, that will keep you unfocused. You won't be able to tell people, I can do this or I cannot do this based on it doesn't fit into our work. Because if you don't have a plan, you don't know what fits and what doesn't fit into your work. And we can't afford this. We honestly cannot afford this. Our work needs to be focused, sharp, targeted, as people's lives and our very planet is at risk here. So strategic plan, without a plan, you're just doing busy work. You're just doing really good stuff, but it's just going around. You're not going to be as effective. So here is the way to do a strategic plan, either for a campaign or for your organization. Let me start with this. I love the slide. This is from Teresa Mills, created that. She's one of our organizers in Ohio. And it's from Alice in Wonderland. And it said, would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? Says Alice. Asks Alice. That depends a good deal on where you want to get to, says the cat. And that is what planning is about, how to get where you need to be. Planning is not rocket science. We plan every day. We mostly don't even recognize it. Maybe not to the detail as we're going to talk about here, but we plan, what road we're going to take to the grocery store, what we're going to buy at the grocery store, what we're going to eat over the next few days. There's a million plans that we do every single day. Planning is a key to winning. The tighter your plan, the more likely it is that you are going to win. So these slides, by the way, fair warning, these slides are very wordy, not my normal thing, but it's going to provide a sort of notes for you, detailed notes for you as you move forward and take it back to your leadership and your group. So you don't have to sit there and make a whole lot of notes. The slides themselves are self-explanatory, although wordy. I think that they really will serve that purpose. So strategic organizing, campaign planning. I want to give you an example that you can see. The Blue Ridge Environmental Defense League is a chapter-based organization, which in December of 2014 had a strategy meeting to define their vision and goals around this campaign. I was fortunate to facilitate that meeting, and they defined the campaign Safeguard America's Resources, which they later launched in February 2015. So when you look at this banner of theirs, you can see their vision. So when we're talking about visions and goals, we need a vision and goals to achieve that vision. Their vision is very, very, very clear. It's protecting, safeguarding America's resources, rights, lives, water, air, and land. And by doing that, they will have clean energy and safe communities. That is their vision. Safeguarding the resources, people's rights, property rights, lives, water, air, and land. In order to do that, they need lots of goals. And so when you look at this banner, you'll see their vision, but you also see what also has to change, right? So in the middle, they have to beat back fracking, no pipelines, coal ash, and so much more. So to achieve that vision and to win a clean energy and safe communities, they need to deal with all of these things in between. It's very clear what they're about, where they're going, and how they're going to get there. So the goals are really, really what's important. We need to come up with a plan to move forward that has goals. We tend to use goals as a bigger picture step towards our objectives and our vision. Goals are both long-term and short-term. I mean, when you looked at what Brettel was doing there, holy moly, eliminating fracking, stopping the Atlantic Coast pipeline, coal ash, and so much more. So there's short-term goals and there's long-term goals. And so I'm going to walk you through a campaign that was used actually in Pennsylvania, because the Brettel campaign is very long and statewide, but this other campaign is very narrow. So I'm going to walk you through this campaign used in Pennsylvania around children and fracking threats. And I will provide you with worksheets as we go through that you can then take back to your group and work with. Normally in this in-person kind of meetings, we would stop and fill in those sheets. But we're a virtual meeting and we're only an hour, so we're going to provide the sheets for you to then do this with your leadership as we move forward. So if you take, I got to, hang on one second, I just need to do something with these people. Okay, there we go. So to take the defining vision and goals from the abstract to the real world, let's look at this example in Pennsylvania, that they are concerned with the impact of gas extraction on children's health. So their vision is that children will travel back and forth to school and attend their school in a healthy environment. School populations will not be impacted by hydrofracking industry, keeping them out of harm's way when they walk, bike, learn, and play in a healthy, safe environment and school. That is the vision of this Pennsylvania group. Their goal is to pass a state law that provides a buffer zone, a distance around the school property, where there can be no natural gas extraction, related infrastructure, traffic from trucks or other commercial vehicles serving the industry. So that is their vision, that is their goal. Their goal is very clear. They're not, well, they might be big, but not too big. They are specific. There's not too many of them, right? So you have to really be careful about the mistakes of setting them too goals, not specific enough, too many, and so forth. This is really simple. We're going to create a buffer zone around schools to protect our children. This is a template. What is your goal? What is it that you want to do with your organization or your campaign? And then what are the goals that you need to achieve that vision, to win, to get to that vision? So this is a little worksheet that's in that PDF that we sent you this morning. And then we're going to talk about, so how do you go about passing a statewide policy? Where do you start? Well, goals and objectives should be SMART, and SMART stands for strategic, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time specific. Begin with who. Who can make your goals happen? In this example, who has the power to decide yes on school buffer zone policy? Make a list of people, not institutions. It's not EPA, it's not DEP, it's people. People are the ones who make the decisions, who you need to target. So in this example, Governor Big Man, it's not really the governor of Pennsylvania, I made these all up. Governor Big Man can do this through an executive order. The governor could do an executive order and create a buffer zone. State legislators can by passing legislation. The chair of the legislative environmental committees are State Senator Mr. I Care and House Representative Mr. No Way. Local city council members, town supervisors can pass an ordinance locally, and so on and so on. So you list all the possibilities. If you want to pass a law or do this thing, who can do that? Who are the people who can say yes to that decision? And for each person on the list, what do they need to hear? And positive messages work better than negatives, by the way. And then who do they need to hear it from? Who has the credibility, or who do they care most about? PTAs, mothers, doctors, teachers? I mean, how do we get them to hear it? And what is the delivery? Is it news media? Is it events? Is it a petition? What is the delivery? Before you can decide who, you also need to explore what resources you have to move forward and how you can use those resources to build power. So resources are not just money, but they're friends, they're allies, there's reach, and so on. So the goal is to work smarter, not harder. So let's explore the resources. But remember, it's who. This is a little exercise that you can do with your organization that would say, remember, it's who makes all of the options you can think of. Next to their name, put what the reasons are that would motivate him or her to give you what you want. Complete the chart for 3 who's before listing others. People get caught up in making lots of who's lists and then they do who, and they never get all the way through. So do 3 of your top candidates and then 3 more after that. It's easy just to make lists and get lost. And then you make a chart on a piece of paper that could look like this. Who number 1, maybe it's Governor Big Man. What would make him do that? And what resources do you need to do that? This is just simple planning. This is what's going to help you gauge and weigh where you move as an organization or a campaign first and what you need to do to get to that final goal. So additionally, you need to explore and list who is likely to oppose you. In this example, one likely opponent is the gas and oil industry. Another might be a local leaders. You know, some of them are industry friends due to jobs or resources the company might bring to the local economy. It's also possible the school administrators will oppose you, or certain labor unions. The school might have gotten something from the industry, a new roof, new computers, or something like that. So now let's look at all of these segments together. Place on your list next to each other so you can see what you have and really think about what you have, what you don't have, what you might begin to build based on that information. Who can give you what you want? What would make him or her give it to you? What resources you have to create the pressure to win? And how can you counteract the opposition? And really thinking about the opposition up front instead of when it occurs is really smart, because you've already got your opposition language or comeback prepared in advance. So here is the list. This is another chart. Again, it's in your PDF that we sent you this morning, where you can analyze your information, your resources. Where you begin is based on the information you just created. To go to the governor or the president would not likely succeed if you put those up there. So where you might start is closest to home. Maybe work your way up that power ladder and plan the needs to be realistic within your resource limits. So look at the resources really close. So this is another one that you could just fill it out with your group. You're more likely to succeed. Okay, so exploring your resources. Resources are not just money. Resources are money, reach, allies, and opportunities. So for example, you know of these 3 other community groups in different areas that are also talking about a buffer zone around schools. That is opportunity, it's possible allies, it's totally reach. The teachers and the school staff are on your side. They want to do something. That's allies and resources. The teachers are really credible in the news media and all sorts of other sort of places. If they go out and talk about this, they too have to live and walk around this fracking infrastructure. You have some funds from a donor who wants to pay for lawn signs and other neighbors who are great on social media who is willing to help you out. A state legislator goes to school in the next town over where there was a fracking infrastructure in a recent accident. Rumors are that he's angry. That's opportunity, that's reach. And when you're approaching the state legislator or when you're approaching the person who's doing social media or you're approaching the teachers, if you have a plan, you can show them the plan and say, this is what we're doing and this is where we're going, and we would love for you to plug in. How can you plug in? If you don't have a plan, you go to them and what do you say 9 out of 10 times? I need your help. Can you support our work? And then it's sort of vague how they would do that. This is a way of being smarter about what you're asking for and utilizing people in your struggle as you move forward. So lastly, gather all the information you can about connection, allies, skilled people at various tasks, and financial support, and so on, and just put them all in your little chart. Okay, this next one is really a very intense slide, so I apologize. I'm reading through it so those who are on the phone can actually hear it, but you should have the PDF as well. So using this example of school buffers, let's pick a primary target and explore a secondary target and different strategies. Let's look at the results of your list making, brainstorming to define the focus or targets as we call it. Governor Bigman, through an executive order, you would need a statewide support and advocacy. Resources to support that statewide effort would be critical for the meeting, briefing, phone banks, advertising, etc. You would need to neutralize the opposition, which could be time-consuming, especially when your efforts need to react to others. There are constant efforts by your opponents in the media, lobbying, and so on. Remember, our opponents 9 out of 10 times have a full-time lobbyist on the Hill at every state house. And so, you know, that is a huge lift. Your group alone has little influence on the governor. You're a community group who is trying to deal with fixing the school for your children. So those are sort of what came out of the first conversations with this group about going after the governor. The second was the state legislators. And at that time, when the state legislators were in office, the legislators had been in gridlock along party lines and nothing passes. Nothing. It's sort of like today's world. Not a likely option just to go up to somebody and see if you could push this through, not without building a huge base. Local city council, township supervisors can pass an ordinance locally. So this is where your group has the most power. Your group has the most power at the local level. One other school district has already passed a buffer zone ordinance, and so you have a model there. You have several areas where accidents have occurred that, you know, might be more interested in creating a buffer zone because of that experience. So in this situation, as written here, and in reality, this is a real group, the local approach was the one that they chose. So passing a statewide policy was the goal of the group, but based on the ultimate goal here, there are some steps that they thought were necessary. So this is what they did. They agreed to statewide policy, but they couldn't start there. So when designing a campaign, you need to define short-term and long-term goals and steps to accomplish those goals. So the goals and steps are critical to working in a smart, strategic way to accomplish your ultimate goal, keeping you focused and helping your group to be proactive. So in this case, the short-term goal of this particular group was to attend X number of parent-teachers meetings, to educate them on the issue, and to introduce the buffer zone goal. To circulate a petition requesting the governor to take action, with a date for delivery and goals for the number of signatures. So a petition is not just a petition. How many signatures do you need, and when are you going to deliver it, and how are you going to deliver it? The minute you put a petition up, you should be able to answer all three of those questions. If you haven't answered all three of those questions, then the question is, what are you really doing with the petition? Is it busy work, or is it really work that you effectively want to use to move one of your targets forward? And then also, the number of signatures also could increase your mailing list or your reach. Just, I didn't put that in there. Hold a community meeting and establish committees to help raise money, design yard signs, and go door to door. Find X number of conferences like Teachers Union, disease related like asthma, learning disability, to leaflet and table. So they actually put numbers, and I don't remember what the numbers are, but they actually put numbers there where the X's are, and really design this in a way that they had a work plan. And you can do work plans as a community group. You can do work plans as an all-volunteer organization. Your work plans are much more involved if you have more people, and less involved when you have fewer people. So then their midterm goals is to get a number of established groups to write letters asking the governor to use his power to create buffer zones. This is to create more pressure on the governor to get the conversation happening at the State House. Hold X amount of children's activities like fairs and games and face painting and other sort of things. This is again to educate parents, involve children, and also to attract media. Children, you know, very soft human interest stories come from stories of covering children at a fair and a game who are concerned about fracking or something like that. So it could be non-aggressive, but it's a way to get a soft story out into the media. Meet with the media, write letters to the editor, and meet with the editorial boards and newspapers locally. It is interesting.
We can't hear you, Lois.
Cannot hear you.
Am I the only one who can't hear?
No, I can't hear her.
No, none of us can hear her.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
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 Okay, where did we end? I don't
remember where, but it was interesting. Suddenly it disappeared.
Face painting and doing soft things for community education.
Oh, you are the best. Okay, but I don't know how to go backwards on my slide. Leah, can you help me go backwards on my slide or not? Well, it doesn't matter. So the real point was that people need to go meet with their editorial board, is what I think I was talking about, that most of the groups in our network do not. They hate their newspaper, they hate their editorial boards. And the truth of the matter is the editorial board, sitting down and meeting with them, is a really good thing to do. And it should be on your calendar. They're critically important for public opinion. And sometimes the only reason they're supporting your opponent's side of the issue is they never heard your side. Nobody took the time to sit down and have a cup of coffee and say, look, you know, this is what we're doing. Not attack them for doing the other side and talking about the other side, but really sitting down with the editorial board and really talking to them about what matters. Okay, so on this slide, again, another really busy slide, and I really apologize, but I wanted this to serve as both, you know, my talking points, but also notes for you all, is that, you know, to be strategic, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time specific. You need to take your goals and activities and you need to place them on a calendar, on a timeline. Where do we want to be? Where do we need to be in the first month, the third month, the 6th month, the 9th month, a year from now? It's just, to accomplish your goals, it's so much easier if you could do that. So if you look at this, it was decided that what we would need to pass a local policy in at least 4 to 5 school districts to build the base of support to demonstrate the concern before approaching the governor in December. So this timeline looks like this one below. And this is really, I understand it's confusing, and I apologize for those who are on the phone who can't actually see this. But if you look at the top of it, you know, what would the plan look like if you were to pass a policy by December? So on the left-hand side, it says ongoing activities. These ongoing activities are activities that one of the committees of your groups or one of the leaders of your group is in charge of. And that is talking with others, educating others, launching a campaign, securing letters and resolutions. These are ongoing activities. These should never stop. They should never stop. If you meet another group, ask them to do a resolution. If there's a faith organization and you were invited to speak to that faith organization about what you're doing, ask them to do a resolution. These are ongoing activities. They're not like, let's go get 3 resolutions and move on. These are ongoing activities. So when you're, in this case, it's like thinking about how do we do that for the whole month. Everybody we meet, if they're an organization or institution, we're going to secure a letter or a resolution. If they're an individual, we're going to get them to sign a petition. And these are just all about education and moving that forward. So you want to pass your first policy. So when you're going to pass your first policy, you're going to try and pass it in April, and you're going to do it at a low-hanging fruit. You're going to do that policy in a community in which the policy has a lot of sort of possibilities because they're friendly, or the county people are happy, the school district, you know, is tired of accidents, whatever it might be, that they're low-hanging fruit, and you want to start that policy there. And this group, as you might recall, I mentioned earlier, this group already had a place that passed a policy earlier in the other part of the state, so they already have a model. And so they're really working hard for their first goal is to pass that policy in April in that first community. While they're doing that, you see the line underneath all of the months, it says second. Somebody is organizing the committee to work on the second policy, which is going to pass somewhere between May and June. And so these things are going together. So, you know, often grassroots groups look at one thing and then they do the other thing. No, we should look at how, and unless you put it on a calendar, you can't really do this. How do these things work together so that they are moving on parallel paths, beginning and ending at a certain time? So in this organization, the first policy was going to pass hopefully in April, the second in May and June, the third in July, the fourth just before the new school year, and then the fifth sometime after Halloween. And so, you know, it's a way to put your major stepping stones, your goals out on a piece of paper so you can see what you're doing and where you're going. You see in August there now begins to be a statewide effort. So now we have a base that's already built before August from these other 3 policy efforts. Whether they pass or not, we still are building a base. And then you have your statewide effort moving forward in the middle of summer through December. So looking at this is your plan. This is what you know. So guess what happens when a volunteer calls and says, I want to help you? You can say, well, what can you do? And you can plug them into this plan. You can show them the plan. If people say, I don't know, you know, I'd like to give you some money, but I don't know where you're going with this. And it's like, well, here's where we're going with this. You know where you're going. You're able to show other people where you're going, and you're able to take volunteers, and you're able to plug them in to something that is an ongoing thing put out there. So the other thing that I think is really important in this is that when you're thinking about activities that are ongoing, so, you know, talking to others, education and so forth, you should really think about each one of these months, which you can do now because you put them on a timeline, and you look at what can you do each month to incorporate your work and themes? And maybe you can do news releases. Maybe you can do other events like Scare the Governor in October with a huge number of petitions on your petition drive. Have a heart on Valentine's Day. Support our policy. May Day, we need something. Independence Day. I mean, you could even take some of those crazy sports things that they do, like March Madness, Super Bowl, World Series, like Mother's Day, Father's Day. Think them in there. So at the end of most community meetings, when we used to meet in person, not so much now because obviously it's all virtual, but in the back of the room, I've heard at least 1 million leaders say, and there's a sign-up sheet. If you'd like to volunteer for our organization, please sign on the sheet. And people do. And then at the end of the meeting, the organization takes that sign-up sheets and puts it away with everything else. Those volunteers never get called because they don't know what to do with them, right? Or they get called to say, oh, we've decided this is what we need to do and we need you to volunteer. If you have us volunteers, you can say, great, here's what we have. This is what's happening each month. This is a theme of this month, you know, Scare the Governor. It's Halloween or whatever. And you can actually give the volunteer a list of volunteer activities that they can do that fits into your plan, that's important work, and it's not busy work. Okay, so let me see. Now that you have a plan, the key is do not put it on a shelf and forget it. So once you build your plan, you need to use it as a guide and remember that it may need to be adjusted. There's opportunities, there's crises, there's new ideas, there's new elections, November 3rd, everybody go out and vote. And every quarter you should gather together and review what you have and where you are, what's working, what's not working. What have we learned so far? What would make us work smarter, not harder? What do we need to adjust our plan to reflect the information we have? And don't forget to celebrate. I mean, celebrating is one of the biggest sort of things that we can do is pat each other on the back. Anybody who were part of my board of directors, that our plan was put up on the back wall of the conference room. When the board of directors met, they read the vision out loud, literally, they read it out loud, and then they read the plan and where we are. And so this is really important to keep us. CHEJ has been focused for 40 years. It will be 40 years in April, and have done a lot of good work. And I think a lot of that has to do with the board and the staff's ability to plan, stay focused, and, you know, change when we have to, because obviously right now we all have to do a little bit of switching. So I included this little calendar for you with some reminder about Hallmark days, there's Grandparents' Days and Mother's Days and Secretaries' Days, and it's kind of a fun thing to do. It's a fun thing to give volunteers, and you know, it's a way to really move your agenda forward. So put it on a calendar. It may not be a 12-month calendar. Sometimes it could be a 3-year calendar, and you can't fill in beyond 12 months, but that's okay. You just think, you know, by 18 months, we'll have a policy in the state of Pennsylvania. So I'm going to stop there and stop sharing. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments. I don't know if there's something in here. Can't hear you. Okay, you can hear me now. Okay, good. So the slideshow, copy of the slideshow is also in the chat. So I'm happy to chat with anybody about questions and comments. I think they just, Leah's helping me do this. Just unmute yourself in the left-hand corner and ask your question. You see behind me is actually the Love Canal community, and we turned out 550 people at every meeting, every single meeting. And one of the reasons we feel very strongly that we were able to do that was because we not only had a plan, but we had 50 volunteers who we had a task for them to do that helped build on that plan anytime they wanted to do something. And so they felt a piece of the decision-making, piece of the action, and a participant, not just somebody who was warming a seat in the back of the room. So, questions?
Yeah, this is Miles J., community organizer with Trumbull Neighborhood Partnership in Warren, Ohio. I just got done doing a power analysis training this morning, and you brought something up that was very key to me. How powerful is it that we have a one-on-one with people? Because sometimes we think people are on a certain side, but we've never talked to them. So how important is that in the work that we do to continue to reach out to people that we may think are not in the work, but or engaged, but how important is it to follow up and have that one-on-one conversation?
Great question, Miles. The answer is it's critically important, because even if they're on the other side, you want to figure out why they're on the other side, right? Because that way you can address it. I think we always assume if people aren't with us, they're against us. And sometimes people aren't with us, but they're not sure who they're with. So it's not just about those we know that are against us, but it's also the ones that are sort of in the middle we're assuming are against us because we're not sure. And talking to them one-on-one, it's always important. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to people who I would never invite over to my house for supper. And asking them, like, why do you feel this way? And I think that the second part of talking with people is also listening to people. I think I hear leaders all the time who come in and say, well, you don't understand, fracking is so bad and the kids are getting asthma and they're all going to die and it's like, oh my God, shut up and go away. I don't want to talk to you. You're selling me, like a preacher selling me something that I might support, but oh my gosh, instead listening to them. And I just did actually a blog. If you go to our website, you can see it, which was, I went to this community in New York and I said, nobody cares about it. They're all about apathetic. They don't give a hoot about this incinerator. And I said, well, I don't know. Did you ask them? Or you just keep preaching to them about how everybody's going to die? Not everybody cares about health. Some people care about other things. And the short end of it is I went to the bar, because we're always in a bar after meetings. I don't know if that's true of you guys, but we always do. And so we were in a bar and I sat next to this trucker and I asked this trucker, like, what do you care about? You care about the incinerator? No. Do you care about health? No. What do you care about? I care about potholes. Okay. So what do you care about potholes? He's an independent trucker. He cares about potholes because they ruin his truck and he has to pay for whatever happens, whatever needs to be fixed in his truck. And so I said, well, 200 trucks are going to go down that street and make more potholes. And he said, okay, where do I sign up? So sometimes it's also about, it's not like they don't care. They just don't care about the same thing we care about. There's many angles to every single situation. And you really need to think about what is that? So thank you, Miles. That was a really good question. And potholes are important. Others?
Hi, do you raise a hand or just speak up?
Just speak up.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. This has been a very informative session. My name is Angelina Cook. I live at the base of Mount Shasta. Our issue is water bottling. We've been highly targeted by the water industry for many decades. And as a result, we're a retired timber town. My question is more about longer term strategies when you're working in regions that are highly disadvantaged, have relied upon extractive resource industries. And for a long time, it feels like until we come up with alternative industry, like we truly are economically disadvantaged and we need good alternatives to the industries that we're saying no to. So I guess I'm asking more about proactive strategies, how to get a little more less defensive and more proactive in our approach to legislative strategies and economic alternatives to the extractive resource industries.
Yeah, really good question. A lot of people are in that boat. One of the things we have done, I don't know all the answers, but one thing that was successful that we've done through CHEJ is we've gone into the communities and said, let's stop talking about what's bad and let's start talking about what's good. And some communities are like, there's nothing fucking good here. There's just nothing good. And we help them find it, because every community has something good in it. And so we call it Eco-Devo, for economic development. But the basic premise, and you know, I'd be happy to send you our workshop on that. But the basic premise is, let's look at what is it that you have here? What are your assets? And you know, if not this extractive industry or bottled or coal in this case, then what? And what do you think you could do here? And open your imagination. And where we did it in Georgia, this one gentleman, this African American low income community, said, "Well, Ms. Gibbs, I didn't know we were allowed to think about that." And he didn't say that just because he was a black man in South. Most people don't think they can think about that. And you know, so we said, well, if you need permission, you got it, but you can think about whatever you want. This is America, right? But what does this look like? So they said, well, you know, this is our community. We did it also in North Carolina, I might add. In North Carolina, they were at a crossroads where they kept on wanting to bring garbage from New York City and other places. And it's like, okay, so what can you do here? And so they did this economic development thing, and they were so successful, because these crossroads also could bring other things there, right? They could bring fresh fruits and vegetables for, you know, a place in which you could have produce that goes to supermarkets. And, you know, so what we've been doing is really helping people think about what is your plus side, and how do we build that, and do a little listening and a little learning. One of the best things I tell people to do is go look at your Chamber of Commerce and how are they selling your place. And most everybody is just baffled, because it's like, come and do some more extractive industries. You know, we got cheap labor, we got no taxes, we got, you know, and they're enticing this nastiness to come to your community, as opposed to, so there's ways to really hold like a town hall meeting and say, look, you know, this is a problem. We know this is a problem. Here, we'll make a list over here, and anybody wants to add to it, Godspeed. But what we're here about is how do we recreate our community in a way that is respectful of everybody, in a way that builds an economy where people can have a living wage and a job and clean. And so to really think about that, we don't do that. We are always about dirt, and we keep talking about dirt and nastiness, and we don't take the time and put it aside to talk about those other things, and what can be done. In North Carolina, they did build 3 different things. One was a separation plant for waste, in which it's county jobs. Hundreds of people got county jobs, you know, good paying benefit jobs. The nastiness didn't get buried in their backyard, plus a couple other smaller economic development things. So you know, I tell people that you should really do 2 things. If you're really a community organizer, and especially in one of the depressed communities, let's talk about what you have and what you can do with it. Sometimes in communities, there's nothing you can do with it. The honest to God truth is just nothing you can do with it. It's so polluted. It's so nasty that maybe you can do some kind of warehouses and something, but then build a community for those who want to stay together a short distance away, right? Or think about something like that.
This is David Dow.
Hey, David.
I live on Cape Cod, and the Shuma Valley plume from Joint Base Cape Cod runs underneath the Yearling Meadows development where I live. I was going to ask you a question about water infrastructure affordability. The Shuma Valley plume has both PFAS chemicals, 1,4-dioxane, and other toxic chemicals, but it doesn't get much emphasis on financial funding either from the state or the county or the town, because they're already spending money for address climate change and reduce nitrogen loading in septic systems, and they said it's too expensive to deal with PFAS chemicals. I was wondering how you get around these water affordability constraints.
I cannot answer that question. I don't know, because I have not dealt with that, but there is a a large organization that is a coalition on PFAS that we can connect you to, that might be able to help you in that particular thing? I mean,
That would be great.
yeah. Okay. We'll connect you. We have your somewhere. We have your information. We have everybody's
Okay.
information.
Thank you.
Yep. You're very welcome. Yeah. So let me see what we have in the. So Sarah, you want to tell us a little more about your? She said, I have the same question. I live in a EJ low-income neighborhood next to a large landfill in the U.S. Where are you, Sarah?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I live in LA County, and we've been fighting this landfill for the expansion, particularly in the last 7 years. So the community is completely worn out, and I'm a program director for an air quality. It's just a program. It's a 501c3. We put it together with community funds that from the previous mitigation funds from the previous expansion. And it is really difficult for me to identify any type of goal because we really don't, we may have funds, but we don't have a lot of human resources. We have a situation where people are just really tired and don't just want the problem to go away. And because the landfill has depressed properties, we have an added issue where people just aren't mobile and they cannot sell their homes. So I guess my question is, how do we identify a goal in a situation where it's just not very clear? I mean, we're trying to figure out, do we find air quality data, and if we do, who do we take that to? We've tried that in the past. So anyway, I don't know. I didn't really mean to speak. I'm a little bit frustrated. That's all.
I can actually, Lois, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to answer this because.
Oh gosh, I'd love if somebody has an idea. Okay.
So hi, Sarah, and
Hi.
I'm Gustavo. I'm the organizing director at CHEJ, and I totally empathize with folks being tired and worn out. I think that happens to organizers all the time. Like nobody's doing this work for a little while and hasn't felt that, right? So I see a lot of smiling and nodding faces. And especially during COVID is like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? We're all quarantined, etc. So
we can't, we can't lobby for anyone. I mean, what do we do at this point?
Right. So one of the things that we have been working on here at CHEJ are different ways to do outreach on during quarantine, right? Using different tools, just much the same way that we would do door knocking, using text messages, right? And it's been really, really successful. I've been working with lots of people throughout the country on different campaigns. And you know, it's something that I would love to talk to you more about. I lived in the Inland Empire for a year. I ran campaigns out there, so I know all about LA County and Riverside and San Bernardino and all that.
We're in northern, near Santa Clarita.
Yeah, and I think, and so that goes, you know, for Miles that I heard from and others on this call, is like people, you just got to remember, like, people want us to reach out to them, especially now during times of COVID. And if we're not building power, then we're not really able to accomplish anything. And if we don't know, you know, what people want to do, like Lois said, we got to ask them. And we have to meet them where they are. And the text messaging program is a way that we can reach a lot of people very quickly and very cheaply. So I'll just leave it there. I posted my email in the chat. if you want to talk more, I'd love to talk to you more about it.
Thank you.
And then I don't know if is there anybody on the phone who would like to speak? Sure. I think we're good. So to add to that, Sarah, it's also about the messaging. Remember when I was saying earlier, it's about the message. You know, is it clean air? Is
Hello?
it this? Is it that? Hello?
Hello? Hi.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm on the phone. I'm Francesca. I wasn't able to get into the Zoom, and I've been dying to talk, but I didn't know how to unmute my phone. The gentleman who just talked about the text messaging campaign, I don't have access to your email because I can't see the Zoom, and I feel that we are kind of in Sarah's position where we are really trying to reach people in our community, and I would love to learn more about that campaign and how we can potentially use that. The other question I have is, has anybody done Zoom outreach calls in their community, and do they work? I feel like I'm with Stop ETO, and we have ethylene oxide air pollution, and we used to hold these meetings, and the last one we had was in February, and then COVID hit, and we haven't built any more growth in our membership, and I feel like we desperately need it, especially after listening to some of the comments on the phone. So other ideas besides text messaging on how to get the community involved in a time where you can't get people to gather?
Well, one group we worked with in Houston had a Zoom meeting. So this is risky, but they did a flyer that talked about a Zoom meeting, community meeting. They leafleted the neighborhood. They did not touch anybody. They dropped it at their front door, underneath their front mat. There was social distancing. And on that flyer, it talked about the meeting in Ward 5 in Houston. And it gave a Zoom number and password and a time and a date. And they were trying to increase their members. It was a new campaign. It just started before COVID hit. And they got 89 people on the phone, on the Zoom/phone. It was a low wealth neighborhood, so there wasn't a lot of Zoom people. They were mostly phone people. And, you know, like I said, there's risks with it. One of the risks is that you're giving the Zoom number and passcode to your opponents as much as you are giving it to your friends and neighbors, and you just need to be prepared for that. We got Zoom bombs. Somebody was drawing penises all across our slideshow, and that was okay. People liked that with us, like, okay, that was rude and crazy, and Gustavo stopped it, and we continued on with our meeting. It just was something we could all giggle about later. So they had 89 people. Most of them they had never met before. And they started talking about what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And so there are ways in which you can do this. If you need help with Zoom or some of those technology, we can help you. And then they started some phone banking and other stuff. So it's not impossible. So you have your text messages, which Gustavo's got down to a science. You have Zoom meetings, and you could do that through a flyer notification without touching anybody. And, you know, have the conversation come together. So our scientist was on that Zoom meeting. So you had a science speaking about the data to the community, just like they would do in one-on-one. The only thing is, you know, it's just a weird forum and people aren't used to it, and it takes a while for people to get sort of okay with that, but they show up and they listen and they do stuff that they're asked to do. And for those who wanted Gustavo's email address, just send something to chej2@chej.org, and we'll make sure whatever you want, whether it's Gustavo's address or data or something, we will definitely get it to you. And so I'm being very mindful of time. Gustavo is doing that thing on October 20th on messaging, which will be really helpful to all of you. To go back to what I started to say to Sarah and wasn't able to finish that sentence. Sarah, it could be about the message that you're giving. You know, in one site in Iowa or Idaho, I forget which one, they were talking about air quality. They were talking about being sick. They were an EJ community, so forth and so on. And people were just tired and they just couldn't do anymore. And they just sort of were falling away. And they reorganized part of their message, which was enough is enough. we've had enough. Don't do the expansion. Enough is enough. We deserve, our houses are this, are that, you know, all these different things. So they really looked at more values as a way to get people involved, and people did get involved based on that sort of value driven messages. So we could share more with you about that also one-on-one after this call if you like, but that really worked. In fact, they turned out 250 people at the next meeting because they said, that's right, enough is enough. I don't care what the numbers in the air is. I don't care how many trucks we're having. I don't care how many people are dying of cancer. Enough is enough. We're just full of it. Stop it. And they were able to stop it. So you know, sometimes it's different things. You can't keep going the same direction with the same message all the time. You need to, people are different. Everybody is different. And so you need different messages for different subsets of people. And some of them will blow up in a positive, incredible way, and some will not. So you have to keep trying. So thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for showing up and for participating. Pam, love you. And we'll look forward to see you all in October with Gustavo's messaging in a virtual quarantine time. Appreciate y'all. Bye now.
Thank you. I don't know if you can hear me.
Whoever asked the question from the 847 number, if you want to stay on for just a couple minutes, I can grab your email.